India has completed a journey of 71 years as a republic, where people are supreme. The opening and last sentences of the preamble to the Indian Constitution, we, the people of India, adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution, signifies the power vested in the hands of the people who participate in lawmaking and governance through their elected representatives. But do you know when were the first direct elections held in the country? Well, it was in the winter of 1920 that the first direct elections were held to the central and provincial legislatures, and the first central legislature was inaugurated on the 9th of February 1921 by the Duke of Connaught. The electorate for the first direct elections back in 1920 was only over 9 lakh of 250 million Indians. Although it later increased, but also only till about 12% of 300 million Indians for the elections that were held under the Act of 1935. Voting was then restricted based on the property held, the payment of taxes, etc. And also women got to vote only in the mid-1930s. Such was the nature of representative democracy in our country under the British colonial rule. Although it all changed in one stroke when India became a republic, with the Constitution coming into force on the 26th of January 1950. And since then, the Indian Republic has come a long way. So how has India evolved in its 71-year-old journey as a republic, and what is its present status after such a long journey? This has been reflected upon by Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu in a newspaper article that he wrote recently. And that's what we will be analyzing with an eminent panel of experts today who are joining us on the show. Let me introduce them to you. We have with us Mr. Desh Ratan Nigam, political analyst, and Mr. Ashok Tandon, senior journalist. Welcome, gentlemen, to Rajya Sabha TV on discussion today. Mr. Nigam, let me begin the program today with you. So the question that has been posed by the Vice President, let me begin the program today with you by asking, how do you look back at the 71-year-old journey of India as a republic?
Tina ji, one thing is very clear. It is evolution. I will use the word evolution for this journey, where there was no democracy in the British times. It was only cosmetic. The real democracy started when India became independent and when the people gave this constitution to this great country. And the will of the people is being reflected. Yes, there has been ups and downs. There is no doubt about it. But ultimately, it is the people of this country who have decided the fate and the journey. And even if you look at it, the first thing that came was Representation of People's Act that gave right to vote. It was not given in the constitution. Although the parliament, we had Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha, everything was mentioned. But the wisdom of the people was that the elected people, when they got elected in the parliament, then they enacted an act giving the Representation of People's Act. And that was the landmark from where the true grassroots democracy began. Then various journeys, land reforms took place, Hindu, consolidation of Hindu laws, marriage reforms, laws, and so many reforms took place by Hindu Succession Act, and so many Hindu Marriage Act came into the field. Green Revolution took place, and we fought wars also, and the will of the people reflected when we won all the wars that we fought after the India became independent. So the journey has been fantastic. Yes, there are problems. We have been solving one by one. Electoral reforms, if you take it, or abolition of Zamindari Act, you take it, you name any. So step by step, the democracy has gone to the grassroots. Yes, we require more representation for the women, which is required, and the youth also, which have to take the baton from the earlier generation. And slowly we are progressing. And the Prime Minister also very clearly said, and the Vice President on many occasions, that India has to take its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. We have to be Video.Guru. And the vaccination process you see in the pandemic, that India is helping the entire world, 128 countries in line asking for Indian vaccine. India is even providing them, many of them free of charge. So this is the time where India has evolved over a period of time, and the evolutionary process is still on, Tina ji.
Yes, there are certain concern areas which, of course, have been highlighted time and again by the Prime Minister, by the Vice President. So we'll be talking about all of those issues as well, and going forward, how can we address them later on in the program. Coming to you, Mr. Tandon, how do you see the Indian Republic having evolved over the years, in the sense of where it all started from and the transformations that have happened over the decades?
I would like to congratulate the Vice President of India, who is also Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, for publishing a very exhaustive, detailed article. In fact, the younger generation should be grateful to Mr. Venkaiah Naidu that he has traced the history of India, not only from the British colonial rule, but also quoting, Vedas, Upanishads, Jain texts, and the Buddhist texts to show that republics did exist in India even in the ancient time when the rest of the world was in the primitive stage. And he goes on to explain how in India there has been an evolution of, republics. Those days they used to be called Sangha, and also, like that. So I think it's very enlightening article which the Vice President has written on a very historic occasion when we mark 100 years of the first session of Indian Parliament. Having said that, I think, even during the British rule, if we go by the history, Churchill, when he was the British Prime Minister, he was not in favor of granting independence to India. And he used very unparliamentary words about Indians that they don't deserve to be free. But thanks to the Labour Prime Minister who won the election, Attlee, who granted independence to India. And then we went on to become republic, as you very rightly mentioned, on 26th of January 1950. But initially, if you look back, from 1950 onwards, till say 1967, when the first non-Congress governments were formed in certain states, and even then later on also till 1977, when the first non-Congress government was formed at the center, unfortunately, the perception about the Indian democracy was a ramshackle democracy where only one party was ruling, one family was ruling. That Western perception was broken when in 1967, the Sanyukt Vidhayak Dal governments were formed in 9 states and Congress was ousted in those very states by the united opposition. And subsequently, emergency was the darkest chapter in India's democratic journey, when the constitution was derailed and all the leaders were put behind bar. And again, there was a question mark about the success of parliamentary democracy and republic in India. But thank God that once, when the emergency was lifted, the first non-Congress government was formed at the center by the Janata Party of combined opposition. And that was restoration of the derailed democratic process in India. Since then, we have not looked back. Now, the term which the Western experts used to call India as a ramshackle democracy, now they are now recognizing that in India, people are supreme. They have been, unseating the existing governments in not only in state but the center also. Yes. Once the one party rule ended, once the one family rule ended, in India, democracy has now moved a lot of ahead. And therefore, the world today recognizes India as one of the largest successful democracies. India is a vibrant democracy today. We have independent judiciary, we have freedom of the press, and we also have, a multi-party system which is working in India. So overall, if you look back in the last 71 years of India's republic, we have achieved a remarkable success in proving that India is a successful democracy. But certainly, as my co-panelist was also saying, there are always shortcomings. And India has never hesitated in accepting those shortcomings. And those shortcomings have also been very prominently highlighted in the Vice President, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu's article. He says, well, money power is there, which is very negative point. Yes. A lack of women representation is there. Then muscle power is there. And people apathy towards electoral system. All these things have been very prominently highlighted. But the fact remains, we can take pride in India being one of the successful democracies. If we look around, particularly in the developing countries, in our neighborhood, we see democracy hardly exists anywhere. So therefore, India being a largest democracy has come a long way, but still we have to go a long way ahead in making it a successful democracy.
Certainly, and
if
how
I
we
may
can
quote,
do that, I'll come to that later on in the program. I'll take remarks from you on, obviously what is the best way forward to make our republic even more better. But coming back to you, Mr. Nigam, a very interesting thing that Mr. Tandon also pointed out, and which the Vice President also emphasizes in his article, that today in the vibrant democracy that India is, the people are supreme. Compare it to 1920 when the direct elections were held. And of course, back then, the electorate was only over 9 lakh of the 250 million Indians. That, of course, is not the case today. Today, through regular elections, the people are expressing their consent by electing their representatives. Do you believe this, by far, has been the biggest strength and the success of the Indian democracy?
See, democracy is the people. There is no two ways about it. And unless the people decide, nobody can do anything. Now, there has been a perception in this country that there are other institutions which are supreme. Some people think, for everything you should rush to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is supreme. Or for that matter, certain other sections of the society are supreme. No. Supreme Court even is not supreme. Parliament as such is not supreme. Parliament will only be supreme when it reflects the will of the people. And that is why we have elected representatives. Will of the people is supreme. It is we the people who have given this constitution to us. And we are very grateful to the Constituent Assembly. There is no doubt about it, but they are dead and gone. Please remember that. We owe our constitution to them. But this is a living constitution. We the people give this constitution every day to us. Please remember that. It is not, it was once given and it is over. It is given every day by the living generation, the people who are living, alive and kicking, and every day we give this constitution to us. And therefore, if the people tomorrow decide that we need a new constitution, then
Absolutely.
If people say, no, you cannot give, then we cannot give. If the people say, if the people tomorrow think that it is our will to give us a new constitution, then that will prevail. Nobody can interfere. That is my understanding of the constitution, because it is the present generation which is alive and kicking is giving this constitution to us each and every second of a day. Therefore, the interpretation that you cannot change the basic structure of the constitution, you cannot do this, that means basic structure of the constitution is taking precedence over the will of the people. So will of the people is only the basic structure, let me tell you, as I understand, because your constitution starts with we the people. So we the people will be at the center, not the basic structure or anything else. I therefore differ with the Supreme Court out here. And once the will of the people manifests itself in whatever form it is, because it is their wisdom. And our democracy is vibrant because people are vigilant. You have seen successful elections one after the other. And the people change. Yes, we have a darkest chapter in our history, 1975, the emergency that was brought, and so many people and the journalists and the press, everybody was put behind the bars. Mr. Tandon would be able to tell us much more about that. I was a small, studying in class 6th and 7th in the school, and I could see and feel what was going on. The the pillars of democracy has to be the people of this country.
So since we're talking about the power of the people in the democracy, what becomes important is, of course, their right to vote. Fortunately, in India, equal voting rights are enjoyed by all citizens, irrespective of religion, caste, even gender. So in that context, Mr. Tandon, if I may ask you, how has the voting pattern or, the representation, if we look at, has changed or evolved over the years, when it began first in 1920 or even in independent India when the first elections were held till date, in terms of representation being wide enough and also in terms of quality?
I think we have not failed our founding fathers of the Constitution, who adopted the universal adult franchise and gave voting right to everybody, irrespective of caste, creed, and sex. And at a time when India was perceived to be a very backward society. And over the years, we have seen that we are matured enough to become a very powerful, vibrant democracy. And the election we have conducted, I would like to repeat that unfortunately, from the first election till the third election or so, there was only one party rule, there was only one family rule. That was not liked by the international community as India being a successful democracy. But subsequently, we have seen people are now very cautious, very careful about their right, and they have, changed the government through ballot over the years in successive elections, not only in states but also at the center. That has made India a very mature democracy that is being appreciated world over now.
Absolutely.
And now, not only one party rule has ended, but there is a multi-party system functioning very effectively. We have a cooperative federalism. There are regional parties who are ruling in states and having an excellent relationship with the central government, even when it's a different party ruling at the center.
Yes, so this was about the procedure, sir. But if I may also ask you and add to a related question to it, when people go and vote, there are certain aspirations that they have in mind. So if we look back in terms of, fulfilling the expectations, the aspirations of people, how have we done so far?
See, people have aspirations, there's no doubt about it. But when they see that the same party was getting elected, same family was returning to power, they were losing faith in democracy. But now, when they are changing the governments, not only in states, out center also, and non-performing governments have lost election, and some performing governments have got re-elected also. So the anti-incumbency factor have now turned into a pro-incumbency. If the government has done well, the governments are getting re-elected also. So that is the success and the strength of Indian democracy. So people are supreme and they know now they can change the government. They can form the government. They are the ones who are deciding how democracy is functioning. Their faith in democracy has been increasing. The younger generation, look at the voting percentage of the first-time voters, the entire youth. They are turning up with big numbers at the voting booth in states as well as the center. So all that shows that the strength of the people in running a vibrant democracy is now being acknowledged by the people and particularly by the younger generation. So therefore we can say that we are moving forward in a rapid success and making strides also. And if the governments don't do what the people aspire, they can always, remove that government and elect a new government or a new party put in power.
Yes, so we are moving forward rapidly, but there are several challenges that we are facing as well. Mr. Nigam, towards realizing the dream of our forefathers of the kind of Indian Republic that they envisioned for us, there are certain hurdles which the Vice President has spoken about in his article and that you also mentioned earlier on in your answer. So going forward, how can we deal with them? How can we address these flaws that exist in our democracy?
Tina ji, one thing I am very clear, the dream of Indian Republic does not confine itself to India alone. It transcends its boundary and that is where we are trying to help the entire world in this new world order, and India is occupying its place naturally. Now, two things that I want to add here. We owe it to the Constituent Assembly, but they missed something very important and which is creating a lot of problems today, that they forgot to mention the fundamental duties in the Constitution, which was brought by the 42nd Amendment. And today, if you see, there is lack of understanding among the people of this country about their duties and responsibilities towards society and the nation. You saw people blocking the roads during Shaheen Bagh and even today the farm laws protests which are going on, where they don't realize it is their duty not to block the roads or to inconvenient other people.
Yes.
People are all aware of their fundamental rights. I agree. We respect it. But what about your fundamental duties? If it had been brought at the time of Constitution itself, then people would have, internalized this concept of fundamental duties. It came very late, and that is where this problem of balancing of fundamental duties and fundamental rights have to be done. Fundamental duties are not enforceable. They should be made enforceable. And only fundamental rights are enforceable. So that problem the courts are facing. Now, Supreme Court, despite the fact it interfered in Shaheen Bagh, is not interfering in farm protests. So that confusion would always remain. Now, second is about cooperative federalism. Now, cooperative federalism means that you work in their respective domain. Now, today, the central government is passing a law, say for example, CAA or farm laws. You have a Punjab Assembly which says we will not implement this laws and passes a resolution. Although under entry 33 of the concurrent list, it is trade and everything, agricultural trade and pricing and everything is in the hands of central government. Now, once they pass a law, no state government in its wisdom should interfere in central laws, otherwise there will be a chaos. Similarly, in the CAA, Kerala Assembly also passed that we will not implement it. So that kind of trend has to be curtailed and dropped.
Yes.
Now, the challenge which is there before us, yes, the participation of women has increased. The muscle power and the money power has also gone down. It has to be curbed totally. Yes, we have, tried to root out the black money which used to come as donations and chandas to the political parties. It has been, the laws have been made. So much only can be given by cash. Electoral bond scheme has also been there. The youth is a number of youths which are there participating. They have to be increased. The rural population has come into participative democracy in a big way, but there is apathy in the cities. The urban population is not coming out in full force and voting. So that skewness is seen in the in elections of the representatives. These are the few problems, yes, but it is not that it cannot be overcome. And the people have been doing. And let me also point out one very important thing. From 2014 onwards, since the present government came and then re-elected in 2019, please look at the phenomenal increase in the productivity of both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. It has even crossed 100%, which used to be in 60s and 70s, sometimes very poor productivity. So participative democracy, both by elected representatives and also by the people, has increased phenomenally, and its quality has also increased.
Yes, so quite a number of valid points made there by Mr. Nigam. Mr. Tandon, according to you, what would you suggest needs to be done to make our republic a near perfect one?
See, the Vice President in his article has also drawn attention to a challenge, and that pertains to the lawmaker, the legislator.
Yes.
The kind of disruptions that take place in our legislatures, particularly in assemblies and also sometimes in parliament, is very unfortunate. And therefore, I think it is incumbent upon all political parties, especially if you lose power and you become opposition party, you also have a role to play as a constructive opposition rather than disrupting the proceedings. That again, becomes a major challenge to make India a vibrant democracy or successful republic. So I think it is incumbent upon all political parties to accept the people's verdict. If they lose power, they must appreciate that now they have to perform the role of an opposition.